Good day, friends. Malloy here. I am super excited to be back today. I am here with author E. Anders and her series, The Earth and Calamities. Welcome. Please tell us about yourself and your new upcoming book, Feathers of Trials and Truths. That sounds super interesting.
Thanks. Um, I'm E. Anders. I'm glad to be here. Yeah, this is the third book in the series, but it is also a standalone. So you can start with this book. You don't have to start with book one. It's like the way I like kind of think about it is like an easy way is like Marvel Cinematic Universe. You can start with Captain America. You could start with Iron Man. You can start with the Disney books that are books one and two, or you could jump in here with Feathers of Trials and Truths and start with this one. So, but it's a take on our world where there was a moment where in 2016 where suddenly all magics, myths, everything, the world and people had imagined all became real in one moment. No one knows why. And then from there, chaos, clashes of gods, magic, calamities, apocalypses, mayhem and craziness for about 200 years. And then the series and the books kind of start about 200 and some years later when things have kind of settled and we have like a new world order, a new power. So it's our Earth and our mythologies, but things have had time to kind of miss and match and kind of make a new world, but it's ours at the same time, and
Mhm.
new characters, new combinations of people, new sub races, new demi-humans, and kind of a whole new take on our world and and a like new adventures, new magic, new craziness. Yeah.
Great. So tell us a little bit more about Lusa and just the overall story arc of this book.
Yeah, so this is the genre is romantasy. So Lusa is a duster. So in my world, that's someone who's part human and has some kind of magical blood, whatever it might be. And she's half Inuit and she's a half Tarasku. I think I'm saying that close to right. Sorry, I'm bad at pronouncing things. Which is an Inuit shadow person. So when people look directly at the shadow people, they fade into the Shadowlands, which is like an alternate version of our world. So since she's half human and half Tarascu, she kind of goes halfway and becomes invisible. So she's kind of spent her life living in that kind of fringes of society. No one can really see her, and she's made her life as like a pickpocket, kind of living outside society. And then she meets Resplendent Reese, who is a another duster who has Quetzalcoatl blood, and that allows him to see through illusions, which is kind of what her magic is. So he's the first person she meets who can see her, and they become very good friends and are traveling around having adventures. And that's kind of where the book starts, is these two good friends off on another adventure at a big festival where he's performing. He's an illusionist. He's a very dandy, fancy, flamboyant magician, and he does big shows, casts spells, and she picks the pockets of the entranced and entertain crowds. And that's kind of how they make their living on like these outskirt towns and communities in what was once Western Europe.
Cool. So, what was the spark that first brought Lusa to life in your imagination? And did she arrive invisible from the start?
Well, I've kind of like so I love mythology. I have a my second degree just kind of happened. I have a degree in English and creative writing, and then I accidentally got a degree in foreign languages and literatures, Greek and Roman studies, because I love mythology, and I've just took all those kinds of classes and ended up getting with that. So I have like books like these where I would just read through and then mark all the stuff I thought was really neat.
Okay.
So so when I started making the Earth and Calamities world, I wanted to like find some stuff from lots of different places. So we and try to find some things that weren't, I mean, there's things I bring in that everybody knows and everyone's heard of, and then I try to find some things that maybe aren't as common to try to
Mm, mm,
make characters out of, or side characters, or, just make it
mhm,
bring some more stuff in. And reading about the Tarasque was really cool, and I liked the idea of, like, that secondary shadow realm, and then it kind of bloomed into the idea of, like, well, what a person who didn't, like, belong in either place, and, like, how would you navigate that when you, like, couldn't be part of either world.
mm,
And so that was kind of the start of, like, when I was thinking about, these dusters, this idea of, like, a world full of these people who were half human and half magical, and it could be any kind of combination, could be half vampires, half humans, half, gods, half like, could be like in making this world, I could kind of go anywhere with it. So that one kind of came up, and the invisibility thing was a fun factor because then it kind of, I don't know, it just lends to a lot of different possibilities for a story. So it was a fun starting seed for, like, what could happen with that. So she did kind of start as, like, that invisible person, and
mm.
what could all that mean, and what kind of person would that be, and what would her struggles be, and who would she become, and who would she want to be, and when she found someone who could see her, like, what kind of relationship could come from that, and all those complications and feelings, and, you know, a romance that could come out of that kind of situation. And
Mm.
that kind of was like the starting seed that kind of started this journey for
This
this story.
oh, great. You've created a character who literally fades when people look at her. So, what does invincibility represent to you in in Lusa's journey?
I think, like, for for her especially, and I think, like, she wants a place, right? Like, she wants to belong somewhere. And I think that's a very, like, real thing for a lot of us. And I mean, it can be anything from just wanting to, especially when we always laugh about, like, how hard it is to make friends when you get a little older. Like, it's easy when
Mm,
you're a kid because you're in school all the time, so you're around friends, and then it becomes your work friends become your friends, because then, and then we had the pandemic, and then we start working from home a lot more in a lot of jobs, and then, like, sometimes it's harder to find we were talking about this before the interview started, like, finding your tribe and finding your people, and the people that are just, your people, and the people you really connect with, and
mm,
the good friends. And sometimes that's hard to find that right place and the right community and your people. And I don't know, I feel like that's part of Luce's journey, is finding those people, and not just your person in the romantic sense, but even just your person in terms of friends, and those relationships with family, and your family, and then found family, and then I don't know. So yeah, belonging, and yeah, just that place where you can really be yourself.
mm.
And then I know sometimes you can feel almost invisible, I guess, if you're not able to be who you really are.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I guess that's part of her journey. And I think, well, I hope that maybe people can relate to that, I guess, in certain
yeah.
ways,
I think a
even if,
lot of people can relate to that. So in my gaming life, I recently created a new Discord channel called Mythral Academy, and my whole philosophy around it was exactly what you just said. I want to create a community where people can come who want to play with me. And if you want to play with me, great, let's hang out, let's have a good time, let's get to know each other, let's become
yeah,
friends. But at the same time, it's like, if you don't want to be my friend, that's fine. I
yeah,
don't care. you know
yeah, yeah,
because I think people, at least in the gaming community, they're always like, ooh, I want to be on that team or that team or this shiny thing or that, they're always constantly striving to get, to the better and bigger and more advanced things. And I got tired of that. And so I was like, you know
yeah,
what? I'm not going to chase that anymore. That's not for me. I just want to have a place where my friends and I can hang out and have fun.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
you know,
that's the best part.
and I think a lot of times it takes people time to really um, be introspective
Mhm.
and to come to that place of realization for themselves.
Yeah,
Um, like you said in Lusa's case, you're looking for a place where you can just be yourself.
yeah.
And I think that that's such a powerful message
Mm,
that you're gonna have in that book. That's gonna be really touching, I think. Um,
thanks.
so the world of feathers of trials and truths includes, let me get to this, dragons, illusions, magical performers, ancient birds, demigods, god. I'm like, the list just goes on. So, how do you approach balancing all of that? And the whimsy with the danger and the romance. It sounds like you've got a lot of balls up in the air for that.
That's part of this book especially. I kind of the first two are the relationship is like definitely like a grumpy sunshine and it's a bit more gritty and a little
Mhm.
darker. So when I started this one, I did kind of like they're a little more silly, a little more light, and I kind of some of the side characters, it's a little more even though there is the danger and there's a lot of like there's a lot of intense stuff going on and there's a lot of like big questions and darker things that they're dealing with
Mhm.
down in the maze. Um, I did try to capture some of that lighter stuff and some of that was trying to find like humor in situations and kind of like find funny moments in
Mhm.
some of the trying to capture that. I hope I did it well. And then just with the side some of the side characters, like making some of the side characters a little more silly, um, to kind of diffuse tension and, there's one particular one, but it's kind of like a little that particular character's one I kinda wanna wait and not say anything about because it's a little bit of a little spoilery for how that character goes, and I kinda wanna
Okay.
wait for people to find out in reading that one, but,
Okay. Cool.
we'll just say Kiki is a lot of fun,
Okay.
and I hope everyone likes Kiki as much as I do, but yeah, that was one of the big things was trying to capture some of that with trying to do things again or look for things that are a little, like, I don't know, a little weirder sometimes or choosing things that are a little goofier was kind of what I went for this time. And making Lusa, like when I started writing it, one of the things I had to do when I was editing was I like when I was about maybe like a third through, I realized that like I'd started her out a little too serious. And
Mm.
when I got into it and really got in the groove of like her voice, and I realized she was a little more like a little more quirky, a little more like giving her a little more of a lighter, quirky voice kind of helped balance out
The
all of
seriousness of
that
the
weight on her
situation.
and all of
Yeah.
those like
Yeah.
bigger themes. But she kind of has almost that lighter view and that she sees the whimsy in the things around her and she appreciates those things and that kind of
Mm.
brings that I think
Mm.
helps bring that forward and keeps things from getting lost in all the or overwhelmed by all the things around her. And that's part of what I like about her character that was fun to write her is that she keeps that like a little bit of wonder even in a world that's full of a lot of wonder or, like, big things that could really weigh you down, like, she appreciates the little things like a good sandwich, like like, she really, like, enjoys just a good home homemade, like, easy sandwich, like, over a, like, really ostentatious fancy feast. She would rather just go home and, like, have a good sandwich, and she's, like, really good with that and enjoys it, and it's, like, little things like that sprinkled in, like, humanizing too all the
Mm.
mystical and magical stuff is
I think
fun.
it's a really interesting world that you've created with all of these, elements, um, and set in like the future. So yeah, I think it's really a very interesting mashup for sure. So the setting also includes mythical giants and the maze guarded by alchemy. So, question. which
Mhm.
part of this underground dragon maze would you most like to visit or avoid?
Well, so one of the things when they're down there and they're trying to find the birds of truth, and it's just rooms and rooms and rooms, and these rooms are just stuffed with like treasure and mysteries, and she there's so much to get through that she doesn't have a lot of time to like spend a lot of time in each and every room. So one of the rooms she passes is and this is one that I was like, she gets to look in it and they have to kind of move on. And there's a lot of rooms like that. And I thought this one would be fun to like go check out more. And it's a room of armor, but the armor's on all these like different skeletons. But it's not just like propped up people skeletons. There's like a unicorn and a giant dragon and a griffin. And it's all these little things with armor sets on them. And they're all posed and stuff. And, and they just don't have time to really wander around and get a good look at everything. And I was like, that would be a cool room to like walk around and really get a look at like all these different types of armor sets from who knows where. Cause it's like, part of the thing is just the Moros and which are they're a type of Spanish giants that they create the maze and they will create golden treasure, but they also like capture and hoard treasure. And there was a golden Spanish dragon from Mount Pindo that is part of like the Spanish mythology in that
Mhm.
local area from like old folklore that is like the typical, very typical, like when we think of dragons and they hoard all the treasure they can find that would like grab everything it could get and stuff it underground in his cave, so it's kind of like a combination of those two things. So it's just like all this stuff. So the room's full of like, I mean, these armors would be, anywhere from the world from like fantasy, but also like history. Like it would be like, who knows where he would have got all this stuff and who they would have taken it from, or who would have been moving around and fighting each other when the gods were arguing when this event happened. And the gods were clashing. Who knew who dropped their shield and the dragon stuffed it down there and put it up on his little display, so it would be cool. That would be one of those rooms of like how many sets of armor are in there from where, and just like it'd be like this huge museum exhibit. I love going to the museum. It would be great. So I was like, I could get lost in
I
a
love
room like
that.
that of like, you know, 600 suits of armor on random things, and dragon too, like a dragon skeleton while we're down there. Why not?
Mhm, mhm. In a world full of deception, what does truth mean to Lusa? And what does it mean to you as an author?
I think for Lusa particularly, because one of the things about Reese, who's her best friend, her first friend, right, really, and the person like she's in love with, is that he's a performer, right? So he spends all his time on stage, just fabulous showboat, he's always performing. That's what he does, it's what he loves, it's what he lives for. But then when he comes home, he gets to be himself around her, and she's like the only person that sees him,
Mhm,
in that way too. So I think being truth is like being true to yourself, like that,
mhm,
truly being who you are. And I think so that becomes so special to her because she recognizes that he only really is himself around her. He's that persona, he's that stage persona when he's out there performing, and he loves that and he loves doing that. But when he comes home, she gets to see that special part of him. And that's who she falls in love with. She doesn't fall in love with the performer. She falls in love with him, and then that's kind of like, the tension point of the romance later comes to like she has to be true to herself, which is, you know, would she the sit as the situ not how can I say this without spoiling anything? Like, as the situation comes with the plot and the events that happen with them being underground, it's like she has to be true to herself with the idea of, you know, she wants to be with him and she loves him, but if she's not gonna be happy in a life with him, she has to be true to herself,
mhm,
you know. So the truth of self and truth of who you are and other people they meet, and seeing them and seeing when people aren't being true to themselves, because she's an observer for someone who
mhm,
lived their whole life, invisible. she sees people, she sees and observes and can kind of, observe when people are lying or being honest or not, because
Mhm.
she's been stuck so much of her life only being able to observe and watch that truth of really being who you are and being your
Mhm.
authentic self, and that truth and putting that out in the world or giving that to people, like, that's the most valuable thing to her, because that's kind of all she has when, she can be that with someone.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
I think
Mm.
that's what it would mean to her, what truth would really mean to her.
It's a very powerful idea. So the friendship turned romance between Lusa and Reese. That's kind of like the central, because it is a romantasy, right?
Yeah.
So how did you approach pacing their emotional, growth, evolution as it went through this, as it goes through the story?
I spent a lot of time because I didn't start, like, heavily in romance. I've always written, like, fantasy, speculative fiction, but didn't lean as I didn't become as interested or as focused on romance until I started this series. Um, so I've spent a lot of time over these last couple years, like, really learning more about all the romance tropes specifically and kind of the steps of them and stuff, and kind of
Mhm.
reading a lot of romance authors and stuff more than I have in the past to kind of just understand, like, just from a craft perspective and just from a, like, taste perspective of what tropes do I like most in, because I know I like the Grumpy Sunshine, that's my favorite. That's why my first book was Grumpy Sunshine, but I
Mhm.
like the Friends to Lovers one too, because, I mean, that's me and my husband. But, the idea of, for them, it was the initial, like, she had the initial crush, and then he was like, for him, he'd never have had a friend. Reese has had a lot of lovers, but he never had a friend because he was just the showboat and everyone's like, "Ooh, swooning over the big rock star," like, so the meaningful friendship was more important to him, and for her too. She'd never had either, so it was like, "Well, yeah, this is more important." And the friendship was always more important, so it was just kind of a very trying to figure out for them, how would it, like, naturally happen? Like, what things would happen between them? Like, what would they have to kinda realize about each other, or what would change, I guess? And then some of it was, like, plot driven, like, sometimes, things happen, like, events happen in the story that put stress and make you realize what's really important if things are in danger, and then trying to kind of preserve the, like, that goofy and silly comfort they have for each
Mhm.
other, and trying to, like, let that kind of bloom into it naturally becoming a romance and pace it that way, I guess, like, and just trying to let it go in a way that, I don't know, felt like almost, 'cause, like, it's like a lot of the romantasy and the relationship between Audrey and Gunnar for, the first book, Blood on the Taiga, is very much like this, where it's the very, like, it's the very, like, monster, dark hero and the very innocent human heroine, like, that's a very romantasy trope,
Mhm.
very, like, I don't know, almost very fantastical, very, like, out of reach of, like, and very, like, the fantasy when you pick up the book and you lose yourself in it, where this feels more like like, just a friendship that
Mhm.
they become a couple that you would read in almost a contemporary romance, I feel like, with the way their relationship just kind of naturally evolves, like, so it was a very different, like, pacing and path for the 2 of them, but just trying to keep them and funny and how they would be, instead of, like, trying to wedge them into, like, suddenly
Mhm.
for steamy, growly, when that's not who they are. They're just kinda goofy, and they stay kinda goofy the whole way through. Mhm,
You have 63 frogs, I read.
mhm.
So, first question, are they sorted into Hogwarts houses? And second, Do any of them have names that might make a sneak peek in your books?
Maybe they should be sorted into Hogwarts houses. 63 was, that was the highest count. I'm a little lower. I am lower right now. We do, my son and I will catch, we've done it 2 years now where we've, caught local, like, native they're called Pacific horse frogs here in the Northwest, and they're little tiny local frogs, and we've done, like, 2 years where we've done, like, tadpole rescues in places where they were gonna, like, dry out, and we have a big retention pond behind our house in our neighborhood where it's just, like, we rescued a bunch of them and then raised them up to little froglets and then released them in the pond where it's, like, they're native, so we're not harming, like, ecosystem or anything, and the highest count we actually got a higher count the next year and got up to, like, 85, I think was the most frogs we had in the house at one time. But I'm currently, I believe, at 24 is the running count because we have and those include, like, actual exotic pets that I have. So I have 8 White's tree frogs. I have, 2 Solomon Island leaf frogs. I have 2 Vietnamese mossy frogs. I have, 1 Pixie frog, which is a African bullfrog. And then I have 1, what did we decide he was? We're like my husband doesn't bring me flowers, he brings me a tadpole from the mountain when he goes on a hike, back in his water bottle.
Oh.
He brought me and we're pretty sure I think it's a Colombian is it a Colombian red-legged frog? I'll have to check again because we were kind of he was still growing, so we weren't sure which and then we have about 8 of the little Pacific horse frogs left um, that we kept here in the aquariums. So it's many frogs. So right now, I think the count is like 24 is
Okay.
currently in my house as pets, as you can see here on the side for some of the aquariums. But yeah, that was the tally, the ones we kept there for a while before. Yeah. So,
So what
but
do they eat?
crickets, when
Okay.
they're really little, they eat flightless fruit flies, uh, earthworms, dubia roaches,
Okay. So
hornworms.
here's the big question. Where do you buy the food for the frogs?
There's people you can do shipping, that there's suppliers that
That's
will,
crazy.
bring it yeah, so I have crickets shipped to my house every week, and then Petco does,
Interesting.
live food for reptiles, yeah.
Okay.
They're amphibians, but they just lump everything under reptiles, which is silly, but, you know, everyone and I have not put the name of any of them in, the books yet, but every book has a frog reference in it.
Cool.
There will and I've done a contest with the first 2 books on my social media for who can find the frog first, and there will be one in, Feathers too. So and I will
Ooh.
post about it when I do my, "Okay, go nuts, who can find the frog reference first?" And, Blood on the Taiga was oh god, I can't remember the vol it's, oh, I can't remember what it's called. It's the Voldvid it's a Slavic It's a Slavic monster that drowns people. He has a frog face. Volvage I can't remember how to pronounce it. But he drowns people out in the swamps in, Siberia.
Mhm.
Lots of Siberian mythos and Slavic mythos. I think it's from the big swings between the s the winter and spring and the thaws, and there's lots of flooding, so much of the mythos out there deals with, like, horrible monsters drowning people. Um And then in Cursed on the Taiga, the second book, it was just a toad croaking at that that one was easy. Feathers is a little harder. That one's gonna be a little harder, and I can't say anything yet, but so that one's a little more sneaky that people
So
have to
people will
figure
have
out,
to
but it it
actually.
it will be in there, but I and then I yeah, I will post that when it starts, and then whoever gets it first, I give away a gift card, but that's my thing. And then yeah, so
That's
I
cool.
I haven't put a name in yet though, but I can't for my White's tree frogs because 'cause they're all named after the, Mass Effect crew.
Okay.
So So I might get in copyright trouble for them, but otherwise
So, what's something your readers would be shocked to learn about you? Or something
I
that
don't know.
would make them laugh, snort into their tea?
It might be the frogs, maybe. I don't know. There's so many of them. The Yeah, I mean, that might be it. It might be the frogs. And at this point or the fact that probably the fact that, um, Pickle, the pixie frog, and that I'm nuts enough to get one of these because they are the 2nd largest they're called pixie frogs because they start really small and cute, but the African bullfrogs are, I believe, the 2nd largest frog in the world, and they can get up to 5 pounds when they're a
Wow.
male frog, so they will be, like, this big. Do you
Oh,
wanna see Pickle?
yeah, I want to
Do you
see
wanna see
Pickle.
Pickle the frog? You wanna see
Yeah,
Pickle? Hold
let's
on.
see Pickle.
I'm not sure how old he was when I got him, but he was really small, but he is now about
Yep,
6 months old?
that's an
7
African
months old now,
bullfrog.
yeah.
So,
Yeah,
interesting
that's
fact, I grew up in South Africa, in Durban, and they were all over the place.
yeah?
Yep.
Are you like, "Why in the world would you have this pet?"
No, I mean, like, it's totally cool.
Did they
Aw.
all did you get to see them wrestle with each other and, like
Mhm.
yeah,
Yep.
all those
Yeah, yeah.
there's a video going around right
So,
now.
in South Africa, they would usually hang out in the sewers where we
Really?
lived. Yeah, because it wasn't very muddy or ponds
Oh,
or stuff like that. But the town where I grew up in Durban, it was rainy season and dry season. And so during rainy season, you would hear them croak all night long, because they would be like in the little ponds and the sewers and the water
yeah.
drains and everything around the house. And sometimes they'd get stuck, and then we'd have to get them out.
Oh, no. Oh, that's
So
crazy.
yeah.
Alright,
Aw,
well,
Pickle
there
is
he
so
is.
cute.
That's Pickle.
Aw.
He's the big guy. Alright, put him back
So
before he
you
gets
say
too
he's
mad.
gonna get up to 5 pounds?
4 to I think 4,
Four to
5 is,
five.
like, one of the really, like, giant record holders or whatever, but yeah, up to, like, 4 pounds. My husband was thrilled when I brought him home.
I can imagine. All right. Last question for the day. So let's say you're trapped in one of your own magical mazes. What
Okay.
what book, item, sidekick, or character would you bring along to survive?
I think for item well, these I can't go anywhere without my loop earplugs. I don't know if you deal with the just the, like, overstimulation from, like, noise and stuff
Hmm.
for, like, crowds and everything. I can't go anywhere without these. I wear them all the time. I'm like, Loop doesn't pay me or anything, but, like, I love these things, and I wear them all the time, and I'm like, either the maze would have, like, no noise at all, or it would be, like, super noisy if, like, lots of stuff was going down there, and I figure if I'm locked in a maze, I'm probably super stressed out, so
You're gonna
maybe
need something to calm you down.
I would want my earplugs. Um,
Okay.
well, and if I needed a sidekick, I'm gonna go with Kiki, and I can't tell you why. You just have to read to know why, because Kiki
Okay.
is the ultimate
Sidekick.
literally the one you want in the maze with you,
Okay. Well, we'll leave it
because
there.
that's who Lusa takes in the maze.
Okay. Thanks for coming on the interview today and
Thank you for
sharing your
having me.
world and your stories and everything with the viewers. For more details on E. Anders' books, be sure to click on the link in the description below. It'll take you to the webpage eandersauthor.com. And if you're interested in more of my books and my stories and what's happening in my world, head on over to mellowescape.com. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, happy hunting.